Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. Oh my. Have we got a show? Have we got a show for you today? I'm so excited. First of all, I got to tell you, Rochelle got a phone call. It's from the president. I'm hoping that she can talk to him and talk some sense into him. So, but before you go, say hello to everybody, Rochelle.
Hello, everybody. This is an amazing show. I'm only going to be gone for a few minutes. Don't stress it. But we have an amazing guest. So I'm going to let Kevin bring her in and introduce her so you guys can get to know her. And then I will join back in the conversation because I have lots of questions for Miss Bridget.
Because they're neighbors in the same place. That's so unreal. This is a worldwide presentation, and they're 3 blocks apart. That's just bizarre. Anyway, go ahead, Rochelle. And
Hey.
Bridget Cook-Burch is our guest, and I said that correctly, I hope.
You did.
Very nicely done. And I don't know if you've listened to the show, you know that I am phonetically challenged when it comes to names sometimes. But you know, what do you do? And I was looking at your website, and you've worked with people like Phil McGraw and Oprah Winfrey. You are a teacher, you're a writer, you're a coach, and you're a co-writer, and have come up with some really cool books with some people and stuff. How did all this begin for you? Was it in school, or was it, just happenstance? How did it, because this has unfolded very nicely for you, I think.
It really has, but it definitely has been a journey, Kevin, just like yours. I just have to tell you, like, the very first time I ever heard your voice in your introductory video, I thought there was 2 people on the line. And you're like,
hey, that's me.
I laughing when I realized there's one person with multiple personalities. This is awesome.
Yep, that's me, doggone it. I can tell you. And I had somebody I played the opening for them, and they said, "That sounds like Toy Story the dinosaur." So I don't know. But Bridget, it's awfully great to have you here, and I want to thank you. You have got great energy. You are smart. You're adorable. You've got all these things going on, and I got to ask you. Now, you co-wrote a book with Oprah Winfrey, correct?
No, I co-wrote a book called Shattered Silence: The Untold Story of a Serial Killer's Daughter, and that was on Oprah. It was the first time Oprah and Dr. Phil came back together. So, yeah.
Oh, so that is cool. Okay, so this is what happens here. Because I get to talk to people that have been on the red carpet, have been in a football stadium with millions of people, I haven't talked to, I did talk to Gary Zukav, who was on Oprah's show about 35 times, which is the most of anybody. But I want your perspective. What's it like going to a national show like that, where Dr. Phil's going to be there, and you're there, and Oprah's there, and all of that? Was it nerve-wracking? Did they make you feel at home? Were you in the green room having a cocktail and living life large?
Well, it was really, really fun. And so we got picked up in the limo and taken to Oprah Studios, and it was just awesome and amazing. And they do make you feel at home. And they were working on Melissa's makeup and hair, and I could be out in the studio audience, or I could be in the green room. And I just thought, this is my one chance to be in the green room at, an Oprah show. And so I decided to go back there so I could look and see everything. And it was really cool because I got to watch the camera angles and got to see how she presented herself. And it was hilarious because she came out in these just, striking Louis Vuittons with the red heel. And she comes out and, she's 6 inches taller than normal. And she's like, these are my 1 hour heels. And my 1 hour starts now. And everybody scattered, the whole team knew it's time to go. So it just cracked me up. But it was wonderful to see a woman who has created something magnificent that brings so much richness out into the world through story, which is what I'm all about. And it was just fun to see how she had created this magnificent world that brought so many things. And she was very warm in person. And she also treated Melissa with an intense amount of respect. And, here's this girl who's finds out that her serial killer father, who he is, and has to face that and has to figure that out. And you don't wish that on anyone. But Oprah was incredibly kind. And you could also tell she read the book, because I've been backstage and front stage at a lot of places where people will say that they read the book, but they haven't really. She read the book, and she was asking Melissa, do you want to know what my favorite part is? And Melissa's like, yeah. And I'm in the green room just nodding up and down, like, heck yeah. And then she told her, and it happened to be one of my most favorite passages, because it had to do with choice, had to do with, a young woman coming of age and then recognizing as an adult, she didn't have to follow in the footsteps of her father or her mother, that she could create her own destiny. So that was Oprah's favorite part. It remains my favorite part. And it was a lovely experience.
And I do have to say, because I'm a little older and I watched Oprah back in the day, and the evolution that has happened with her and her thoughts and ideals and things, like when she read Seed of the Soul with by Gary Zukav, and you could see it right in front of her, the life-changing events that were happening in her life on her show, that was changing her opinion about life and how she lives it. And also because of her, from what I understand, rather horrific childhood, it was a way for her to get through that and past it. And she still today is doing that kind of good work with the Ohm Network, and her writings and what she is doing. It must have been just a thrill. You got picked up in a limousine. Oh yes, we're going to the Oprah show. And that must have been just an amazing moment in time.
Oh, it really was. I do have to tell you a funny story though, Kevin. The next day we got to go do the whole tourist thing, right? Because the first day was the whole production and getting there on time and being nervous and, making sure everything is great. So the next day we go in a cab and we get to hang out at the studio and, go to the gift shop and do all the touristy things. And we're taking a cab on the way back. And, this really nice gentleman in the front seat, he's like, where are you from? And Melissa says, I'm from California. And he said, oh, great. And I said, I'm from Utah. And he goes, oh, how many husbands you have? And I said, 7, one for every night of the week. And he just like breaks out in this huge grin. And Melissa's like nudging my side. And finally, I just burst out laughing. He's like, you teasing me? And I said, yes. Yes, I am. I only have 5. So we had a blast. It was just so much fun. But I love refuting stereotypes through stories and interpersonal experiences and asking people a lot of questions. So it was fun to have the tables turned on me for once.
Well, and what's a lot of people don't know, if you've never been in a studio like that, there are lots and lots and lots of people that are working on that show that day, and there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and of course it all revolves around this one lady, and everybody wants to make sure she's happy, because that's and stuff. So congratulations, that is a great view of life from that perspective, but you've done so many, and you've worked with so many people to create books for people, and you're coaching folks. If you go to her website, which is called your inspired coaching, yourinspiredstory.com,
Okay.
yourinspiredstory.com. And you can find out all about her, because as you say on your website, everybody has an inspired story. That is so true, isn't it?
It is. It is. And I think what's really beautiful is in working with people over and over and again, I get to see what happens when someone believes in the power of their story to change the world. And it may sound highfalutin, but it's not. It's actually very concrete. And I would even say it has the ability to be scientifically proven that if you work on your story and you understand yourself better, and you understand from your childhood and your teenage years and your adulthood some of the patterns, you have two amazing things that happen. Number one is you come to see patterns that you might not have recognized before that you can break or keep. And then the other thing is that you rise beyond your story into something more incredible. You realize that your story doesn't define you. It can be part of what makes you unique. It can be part of your incredible storytelling. It can be all these wonderful things, but it no longer has to define who you are. And that's a really great place for an emerging leader or leader to be.
Exactly. And years ago, I did a program called Family Legacies. And it was so sad because what the premise was that I would go talk to older Americans, older people that maybe they were in a rest home now, and their family was concerned because they weren't going to be around for very long. And so they wanted me to interview them. And a lot
Mhm.
of these people say, "Oh, my story is nothing. I don't have a good story to tell." And so this one gentleman, I sat down with them, and we started telling his story. It turns out in World War II, he was on the staff of General George Patton as they were racing across Europe to save America from the Nazis. And he knew Patton intimately and had these conversations. And I said, "Don't you realize how special that is?" And he said, "Oh no, a lot of people knew Patton." And then I said, "Well, what'd you do after that?" And he said, "Well, I ended up in Hollywood." And I said, "Did you meet anybody?" He said, "Yeah, I had a great relationship with Bob Hope and Bing Crosby." And I said, "Do you realize how special that is?" And he said, "Oh no, they weren't anybody at the time." And you know what I mean? People tend to downplay the incredible moments that are their lives. It is so sad to watch. We told his story, and his family got a great big kick out of it.
Oh, I bet they did. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and this is something that I've always believed is that when someone in your family passes, it's like a library burning. Those stories are no longer ever able to be told because nobody knows them, gets them. But if you can capture via video and a really good book, you have priceless treasures for kids and grandkids and great grandkids. It's amazing. And I love what it does to the storyteller as well. I hope people don't wait until they're 70, 80, 90 years old to tell their story.
I couldn't agree more. And while I was doing this, I said to my mom and dad, who have both passed now, and said to my dad, "I want to interview you." So I brought my equipment up to his house, and I interviewed him and put it on. In those days, I put it on CD and stuff. And turns out 3 months later, he had lung cancer surgery, got a brain aneurysm, and passed away. And but I had this CD, and
Yeah.
so I took the CD and I edited it down so that, and I gave it to the pastor at the church for his memorial service. And I said, "Could you have your person play this over the sound system when I call for it?" And I had taken about 10 minutes of my dad's stories, how he met my mom, what he thought about life, what he thought about himself, and more importantly, how did he want to be remembered? And so during the course of this memorial service, I played that. There wasn't a dry eye in the house because we had his story from his voice, the way that he would have said it. And it was just an amazing experience. And I implore everybody, call Bridget, tell your story, learn how to tell your story, learn how to write it and stuff. And then go to Salt Lake City and her and Rochelle, and you can hang out.
Yeah.
That's right. Rochelle and I are going to have a party. So
Yes, we are.
That was the funniest thing because I said, "Where are you from?" I'm just it's south of Salt Lake City. It's like, oh, is that anywhere near Sandy? And it's like, yeah, it's right there. And it's like, I know a girl, and that it's amazing to me that you guys are from the same state, even.
Yeah, we're gonna go on lots of mountain trips.
I've heard you love the mountains. I'm like, all right, barefoot mountain girl over here in the place. So
yes, I love it.
You don't actually go in barefoot, do you?
Well, I say that, but I
was going to say they're bugs.
They're my favorite. Yeah,
you got to be careful if you're walking through the river. It's slippery right now, but it's so adrenalizing. It's so worth it.
I like that, adrenalizing. Yes, I would agree.
Are you sure that's a word?
That's a.
It is now, and it's in a positive way. So
that's exactly true. And Bridget, so tell us how you got started on this journey that you've been on.
Well, wait, Kevin, we need to take our break first, and then she can talk about it.
She is so right. You know how I can tell when this is a great episode and I'm having a really good time? I forget all about the breaks and just blow right through them. But they tell me I've got to do what I've got to. So Bridget Cook-Burch is with us and Rochelle's with us, and we will be right back. It's just 45 seconds, so relax. We'll be right back with her.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Rochelle's right here. And we've got a great guest, Bridget Cook-Burch. She is a coach. She is an author. She's a co-author. She can teach you how to write a compelling life story about your life, even if it may not be all that cool, but she can make it sound really cool, I think. That's not fair. I think everybody's got a story worth telling. Just some of ours are better than others, don't you think?
Some can be worded more compellingly. That is for certain. That's what I love to be able to focus on, because I have some national and international bestsellers. I have a New York Times bestseller, and I can see the difference in my own work, but also in others. If they say, you know what, I want something that's going to serve other people, that it's going to leave a legacy, it's going to have lasting impact, that they're going to shut the book and they know what my rallying cry is. So I do think that books have genuine power, and it is all in the words that you choose to use it for that, like the greatest expression of story.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm looking at you. Let's see, you are a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, selling author, mentor, transformational coach, speaker, and passionate humanitarian. Divine to, I'm looking at the
Divine Turbulence.
To tell me about that book. If I saw that in a bookstore, I'd pick that up.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that. That is one of my favorite stories. It's about an international sculptor, Gary Lee Price, but he didn't start that way. He actually was being raised on an army base in Mannheim, Germany, when his stepfather took out the life of his mother and himself right in front of Gary, and left him parentless on this army base in Germany. And he and his baby brother were shipped back to the States. And Gary went from frying pan into this fiery den of abuse, and nobody knew because the home that he was living in had an older stepbrother, and the parents were working at nights. And so he was subjected to torture and abuse of all kinds and didn't know from one day to the other if he was going to survive. But then he found two things that created such an extraordinary life for himself. He found God and he found art. And those were life saving to him, along with teachers and other people along the way who would reach a hand down to lift him up from time to time. And now Gary is this extraordinary sculptor of the Statue of Responsibility, which in our nation we will see in our lifetime. Like there's already a small one in California, but we're looking at a 305-foot statue on somewhere in the West to bookend the Statue of Liberty in the East, because as Dr. Frankl said, after he got out of 3 different concentration camps, he said, you cannot have liberty without responsibility. And it is all about one hand reaching down to lift another, because sometimes we're the hand reaching up and sometimes we're the hand reaching down. So Gary's story is really extraordinary.
300 feet tall.
Yeah.
Does he have an idea of where he wants to put it, or are you still looking at site? Is he still looking at sites? How is all that working?
There's a couple of sites right now who are looking and planning and scheming in a good way. So we will see. It's been such an interesting journey. It's a lot like the Statue of Liberty, where it needed time and space, and a lot of people didn't think it could be done. And then it was street urchins and school children and others who helped to provide for the base and other things to get it here and up into this extraordinary icon that is part of our history and our story and everything else. So when people hear about the story behind the Statue of Responsibility, like what it even took for Gary to have an understanding of who Dr. Frankl was, and then to have such an affinity for him, because Gary had been brought to the lowest of lows of human deprivation, and he never will compare himself ever to a concentration camp victim. But his compassion at that level and that depth of understanding, when everything gets stripped away from you, you have that one choice, and that is to decide your own way. And when the threat was finally removed from him, he could decide his own way, and he's never looked back. It's been amazing.
The Statue of Responsibility.
Mhm.
I love the name. I love the name of that, and I hate to bring it. And this isn't a political show, so we're not going to dwell on it. But there's a lot of lack of responsibility for one's actions going on in our country right now, and I'm hoping that that would be a great testament to building up something of positive nature that can be viewed and appreciated by lots and lots of people.
Yes, and discussed with children, right? And that's one of the things, the reason why we want it to be so big is that we'll have this extraordinary, beautiful deck from which to view the world, but also that there can be displays and interactive uh, can't talk today, activities and other things for children. And every time they come back, there's something new for them to discover. Like, what does it mean for me to take accountability for my own life? And what does it mean for me to learn that I have choices? And how can I be responsible for the planet? How can I be responsible for my own safety? How can, there's so many beautiful conversations to be had. And it's not about left and right. It's about being human. and how do we show up for one another? And we're missing that. You're right. We're missing that in this country, the accountability, and also how do we watch out for one another instead of tearing each other down? So we really do believe in this movement and that it will be something that can do extraordinary things. In fact, Tony Robbins is behind a new movie that will be coming out based on Dr. Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. So we're really excited about the filming of that, about the release of that, because we do feel like that is a huge message for our times.
It's
Well,
a
and I
big
have to tell you, Kevin and Bridget, I do not think, maybe my mind was naive, but this is huge because of how big it is. And if you would have told me before 305 feet, I'm like, 300, it's not that big of a number. But I went fishing yesterday and I was at a canyon that is 200 feet deep. And I mean, you can tell it's very deep. It's very statured in the way it is. It's just vertical, straight up and down. But I went on the other side of the dam and I've been going here for the last 15 years of my life. And to know what another 100 feet added is to that, I love how you guys made it so crucial to be so big and
Mhm.
use the word movement, because it's putting out a statement that is going to impact history forever. So I really do think that is amazing.
Thank you,
well.
Michelle.
For those of you who might not get it, it's the length of a football field, only it's vertical rather than horizontal.
Mhm.
Which is a long way. I mean, if you lay down on the football field and you look up the other way, there's a long way to go.
Well, and
Absolutely.
congratulations, because quite frankly, we have gotten away in this country from the concept of community, kindness, taking care of each other, being there for each other in times of need. We're going to play a commercial in just a couple of moments for Carriage House. There are 4 million kids that are walking around homeless, trafficked, or hungry today in the United States of America. I submit we can do better. And so that is the statute of responsibility is a great way for us to highlight that. I'm excited about it. Do you have any idea when construction might begin on it?
Um, it depends on what happens with these couple parcels of land and when we get a chance to be able to tell people what's happening. But you can go to statueofresponsibility.org and you can see the brilliant architectural concepts of the monument. And it's not just a statue, like it is a living, breathing, dynamic building that you'll be able to have interaction in, around, and on the grounds. So we're really excited about it.
And you can go 300 feet up in the air, and there's going to be a platform up there, and probably a little restaurant. And I've got plans. It sounds really cool. Sounds really cool. And so
Good. It's one of those things, Kevin, where we can say to each other, I'll meet you at the top.
Yeah, I
that's
was just
right.
gonna say it's like going up that statue would be like going through a journey of life.
Nicely
And
said.
say that again.
Going through the statue reminds you of the journey of going through life,
Yes, it would
right?
be. And I'm going to take an
Well,
elevator. You might want to
no,
walk up a
you gotta
statue
walk
of.
those steps and you gotta work that work, Kevin. That's the point.
Ain't nothing. No, ain't happening, babe. I'm
You tell me
gonna go.
that. You have to listen to it too.
And so, and by the way, we were talking with Bridget Cook-Burch. You're phenomenal, by the way. Did you know that? Of course you know that. And of course, everybody else knows that too. Who is, and we've got to take a break here in a second, but who would be your favorite author or story to work with?
Oh, you cannot ask me in 15 seconds to be able to say that.
Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds. How about that?
Okay. I will tell you, the story that starts you on a path will always hold a very special place in your life. And, you had said about capturing your father before he was gone. I wrote a book called Skinhead Confessions: From Hate to Hope. and how this embittered, angry young man actually became a dad whose heart melted and he wanted to do something extraordinary and be an incredible father for his kids. And it meant he had to change. Well, when we were finished writing this book, TJ had a stroke and he was unable to articulate himself. And he'd been a nationwide, worldwide speaker, White House crime panels, worked with Governor Schwarzenegger, just all different kinds of things. But this book became his voice. So it's tucked in my heart very strongly. One of my favorites.
I remember that when that book came out, and it was a big deal. It was on a lot of shows, and I'm not sure if it was him before, but it had an impact on a lot of people, and that's the work that you do. We need to take a break, but Bridget, the work that you do has an impact on everybody who reads what you're writing, and also the people that you're working with to tell their stories. And I love that about what you're doing. And Michelle, I think we need to take a break now.
Yes, and I have a question when we come back about writing. So,
Good.
Well, I'm glad she's here then. That's why we had her on, so that we could talk about writing stuff.
Now I won't have to go chase her down at her house. Just kidding.
Exactly. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Rochelle is here. Bridget Cook-Burch is here. And I got to tell you, every time I play that commercial, when they show the stir fry, I'm like, hey, that's really good. I think I want that. I've never had it yet. So anyway, Bridget is here.
Crying, so
Yeah.
And Rochelle, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm okay. So through all of your experiences, I totally understand how there wouldn't be one that would be the same. To explain in something that was like, oh, that's my favorite, or this is that for that reason. But I think about it on a deeper level for when you're with that person and you're talking to them about their life. And do you try to kind of just like separate from yourself and be more of like an overview when you're trying to express what they're saying and putting it into words and helping them? Or is it kind of like you're bonding with them and stepping in their shoes to try to reimagine it and tell it as if you were them? And how do you kind of like keep your space? Because there might be so many stories I would take on personally, and to not let it affect you, or to take that on for that person, I guess.
wow, really good questions, Rochelle. I just have to say, really good questions. So one of the things I learned early was that I am the observer, but I also get to take it on, because when they're telling me the story, I get to feel it in my body. I get to get the chills or feel the nausea or feel the elation of the triumph. I get to be in that dark shadow of the dark night of the soul and understand what it took for that person to rise out of the cave, right? And so every human goes on at least one hero's journey, and some extraordinary individuals go on several. And so to be able to listen for their language and to feel it in my own body so that I can put it on the page has been this exquisite, extraordinary experience. One of my friends, Richard Paul Evans, he loves to read books about polygamy, and he gave me one of the greatest compliments. We were both speaking at a conference, and he said, Bridget, I read The Witness Wore Red. And he said, I saw your name on the front, but he said 2 pages in, I completely forgot about you. And I was immersed in Rebecca Musser's story as if she were the mouthpiece of it. And I was like, yes,
Yes.
the greatest compliment, because you can't help it. You color some things. Every author would write that book a little bit different. You color some things, but the more pristine and pure that you can make it to their story, to what they would say, to how they would express it, to what their tragedies and triumphs are, is in my estimation the highest form of love there is, and the highest form of art there is. So
That's
Where did the empathy that you write with come from? Was this how you was born, or did you acquire this over time?
definitely acquired over time. I was always a compassionate kid, but I also I was a really screwed up kid. Like, I had
Welcome
3
to the
sets.
club. I think that's
Yeah.
everybody, my
Welcome to the club. But I was adopted when I was 6 months old, so I'd had 3 sets of parents, and I had this deep wounding that I wasn't even conscious of, where, I was just always waiting for the big people to leave. And so I was fiercely independent. I was always trying to make it on my own. I didn't know how to ask for help, and I often didn't know how to conduct myself. I got myself into a lot of really big trouble from time to time. But I was with a group of some pretty massive partiers, and I was watching how certain choices ended up affecting people. And I wanted something different, but I didn't know how. So I started going to a 12-step group, and I found God again, that I'd known as a child. And so that was really beautiful, but I didn't know how to put all that together. And I kept just screwing up in school. I was going to college and working 3 jobs and trying to make it, in the financial world, and trying to prove myself. And I just kept messing up. And I didn't know it, but I had ulcers and fissures in my colon, and I developed sepsis, this horrific infection, and ended up in the hospital, and they're doing emergency surgery. And I'm listening to nurses outside in the corridor, and they're like, she's not going to make it until morning. And it was this moment, Kevin, of that I realized I'd come here to do certain things, and I had not fulfilled the measure of my creation. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know what that means, but I knew that there was something I was here to do. And then I was really sad because I had squandered it. I had, in my fear, in my insecurity, in all my humanness, I had pushed all of those opportunities and people away. So I had a presence that came into my hospital room, and he told me I was being given a second chance at life. And I've never taken that for granted. Every time I get to hear a story, every time I get to write, every time I get to feel that human expression, it is, it's part of that fulfillment of my creation. I know it's why I'm here. So I heard Mother Teresa once say, I am the pen in the hand of a God who is writing a love letter to the world. And I was like, that's me, not Mother Teresa. in the hand of a God writing a love letter to the world. And that has been my ongoing motto ever since. So I love stories of transformation. And I think they're the most powerful stories on the planet. And you two have probably noticed, like in our media and in our entertainment and other things, there's a lot of exploration of dark subjects. And I explore dark subjects too. Like, what is the darkness that humanity finds itself embroiled in? But I always have this arc of transformation. Like, what is the dark? And then what is the light that we bring in when we discover who we are, why we're here, what we really have to offer other people, and we begin to be of service to humankind? It's where I see people take off. It's where I see just extraordinary miracles happen. So that's where I learned, that was in the depths of my own dark night despair, was this compassion for every other human on the planet, just trying to figure it out and become a better person.
That is a
Yeah.
beautiful story. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say too, the last show that we just had, it's crazy how when you are in touch and you are present, how everything kind of just
It's a
aligns.
theme.
I can't make these things up. If you listen to our shows back to back, you can catch it. But you mentioned something so specific, and I loved how you were embracing of it. We talked about accepting of yourself, and Kevin has brought up this morning how he's been thinking about self-sabotage and how much I think the realization of who you are is what allows you to realize how you're sabotaging yourself without intentionally doing it, and able to see that happening. And you don't have to approach it negatively, but to be like, okay, we have some things to work on, and we're just going to take it one step at a time. And that happened for you. What was that like?
Yeah, thank you. I think um some people can identify their patterns through time, or something will be brought to them. I had to have a Mack truck, like, right?
Right?
Many years. But since then, I do try to see places where I self-sabotage before it happens, or before I go completely down the wrong rabbit hole, or hurt myself. And I'm not always successful at it, because I think we're always learning and growing. But my students, my authors, have taught me so much about just like the incredible resiliency of humankind to find a way.
Mhm,
And I already know that God believes in us. And so when I see humankind in the form of a person who comes to say, you know what, I may not have this all figured out, but I'm going to take that one little step that you just talked about. I'm going to face this one head on. I'll
mhm,
give you an example. The Witness Wore Red, that book I was telling you about. She was the 19th wife of 65 women, and she was born and raised in a cult. And it was like, no matter how much you have to suffer here, you keep sweet and pray and obey, and it means that you'll be able to have these blessings in heaven. Well, there was a lot of suffering that was going on, and eventually she saw their prophet was a pedophile, and she was worried for the children in her community and even her family. And so she went up against Warren Jeffs and the
mhm,
FLDS and helped put this prophet pedophile behind bars for life plus 20 years. She had her own demons to face. And so when she'd go in the courtroom, she would write this word love on her hand. And no matter how nasty these really expensive defense attorneys were, like how they would shred her and rip her apart, she would look at that one word, love, and decide that that was going to be the energy that she would emanate no matter what, and that it was bigger than her. But there also was this element of self-sabotage, there also was this element of why me? Out of 10,000 people in Warren Jeff's cult, why do I have to be the one showing up? Why can't someone else take some of the load? Because she had to be incredibly courageous. And people, her own people called her a whore in the streets and Jezebel and other things because she was going up against the prophet. But she had this situation one day where she's out on a Texas property waiting to testify. She had to be under guard and supervision because there were people who wanted to hunt her down and kill her. And she had to get away. She woke up early one morning and she just had it. She was away from her little one. She was so frightened, so scared, and just up to here. And we all have those days. She races out, runs to where she can't run anymore. She finds this flat stone, and the Texas sun begins to rise as she's just sobbing her heart out. Those gut-wrenching sobs. And she was like, God, why me? Why me? Out of all the people in that cult, why does it have to be me? And as the sun was rising, and it's a Texas hot sun, so it's like sizzling almost on her skin, and she could feel the aliveness of each of her cells. And then she hears this little voice, don't ask why me, ask, show me. Well, she's a little feisty. She's like, all right, then show me. And just then, in her pocket went off her phone of a note that she had written to herself at this little conference where she had learned this word called genshai. And it means to make no one small, not even yourself. Genshai. And she realized that she'd been doing this outpouring, this big thing for other people, but she had been making herself small. So the next time she went into the courtroom, she had love, and then she had genshai written on her hands. And Warren Jeffs had outlawed the color red. Like, no one was allowed to have a red truck, red shirt, red toys, nothing. And so every time she came walking in the courtroom, she comes sashaying in a little bit or a lot of red. And one day she had to face Warren Jeffs in the courtroom. And the last time she saw him, he said, I will break you and I will train you to be a good wife. And she got to walk into that courtroom and turn around to be sworn in. And I was there and I got to witness this, that the whole galley was a sea of red ties on the Texas Rangers and the AGs, and women in red dresses with red roses in their hair, like a sea of red. Because she was one woman who proved that she could change the world. And so forever, she has been just this incredible inspiration to me. And every story that I get to write, I learn more about me. But every story we get to read, we also learn more about ourselves and what's possible in our world.
I got to say, first of all, is that going to be a movie? I want to go see that movie.
Yes. I'm like picturing it all happening. I'm like, I'm going to start a movement on our street, Bridget, and we're going to lead it, and everybody's going to walk down the street in one color.
Because that dude, he got...
I know there will be a movie. She has yet to find a director who has the integrity to create something like truth, because a lot of people will aggrandize what has happened down there and they only focus on the real negative and the sickness, the pedophilia and the things like that. And there is a big, beautiful, amazing story behind that really deserves to be told. So when she finds a scriptwriter and a cinematographer, a director and a producer with integrity, and they understand this huge power. Like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. She will do that movie. It will be amazing.
And Tom Hanks, if you're listening, I would love for you to run this project if you're listening, because this is right up your alley of the type of movie that will make an impact. And that, I think, in your career right now is what you'd like to do. We need to take a quick break, Bridget. By the way, you are a master storyteller. I was sitting here on the edge of my seat just listening to that. You're just brilliant. Thank you. And so listen to this. This I created, and it's really heartfelt. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, Rochelle, and Bridget. I think we should all go out to dinner now. That would be awesome. And Bridget Cook-Burch, you are, Rochelle, I'm out of words. Would you tell us who she is?
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't believe we could put any of it in words, but yes, she's a coach and an author. I mean, visiting your website, yourinspiredstory.com. I love how you make it so affordable to help somebody even try to learn something and join a class and get an idea of all of everything you do through all of your stories. I have to ask you though, you've made your own book about your own story, right? And you're continuing that as you live.
I get asked that all the time by my students. A little at a time, I'm working on 2 books. One has to do with the discovery of where I came from, and the other one has to do with the discovery of the power of story. So a little at a time. I'm just a little busy working on other people's projects. So.
Well, in that case, has there been a story recently, like I'm talking, let's say the last 3 to 6 months, of something that you heard in someone's story that changed some sort of framework in the way you live your life?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Yes, I can give a big shout out to one of my authors. He's a coach. His name is Mitch Whiting, and he discovered that most people spend 90% of their hours every single week in a state of suffering. And he grew up with self-help. He'd been all about the, how do you do affirmations? How do you change your habits? How do you do this? How do you do that? And he
Mhm.
tried all of them, and he found that it wasn't effective. And then he recognized that there was a way to rewire your brain for permanent change so that you could spend 90% of your life in a powerful state and not a suffering state. And when that suffering state enters in like this fast, you can change that. We have like 60,000 thoughts a day, but if it's like the Jenga game he taught me, is that if you can dismantle one negative thought, 10,000 negative thoughts that follow that Jenga board get blasted out. You reframe that permanently. And so I'm in the process of doing that. He's powerful. He's enigmatic. He's amazing. And he's a big deal on LinkedIn, where so many people are just miserable in what they're doing for life and career. And he's the kind of guy that says, why not live in a joyful state? Enjoy your family, enjoy all the things that you have right now. So yeah, he changed my world, and he's just one of many. Every time I get to work with an author with a rallying cry, I'm like, all right. What am I going to dig into now?
Bridget,
Yes.
what's his name again?
Mitch Whiting.
Mitch and my friend Rochelle is going to write that down, and then we are going to go in search of Mr. Whiting because we want him on our show.
Yeah.
I
Because
think that fits perfectly with you two.
and that is so important. You know, you are remarkable in everything that you do, and you know when you told me the story that you were 3 months old. I think it was 3 months old when you'd been through several families and they found out that you were adopted.
6 months.
And 6 months. And that could have affected you. And that's the power of the person that you are. That could have affected you for your entire life. My mother-in-law was adopted. And she was adopted. Now, this is in 1930 when she was adopted. And the kid was 16 and had to, go to one of those homes where they would send you away and stuff. She had no shot at raising a child. So this engineer that was turned out to be her adopted father paid $5,000 and went to Tacoma, Washington, and picked her up and took her back to Yakima, and that affected her whole life. She was now nobody loves me and she told her that story incessantly. And to the day she died at 86 years old, she believed that nobody loved her and her adopted family wasn't there for her. They tried to reach out, but she would not have it. She would not listen to it. So, and there are people that have gone through that and are telling themselves that story and am allowing it to live in infamy, as Roosevelt would say, within their entire life. Congratulations that you set that aside. And I know it probably took a lot of work and stuff for you to do that and eventually to reach where you are. And congratulations. I implore everybody to get the work you need. If you're adopted and don't realize how special you are and how loved you are, go get some help to figure it out.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yeah. I would. I had extraordinary adoptive parents, so wonderful and loving. My mother is still around. She's almost 93 this year. And they, she told me outright, she said, "You were not born under my heart, but in it." And I will never forget that. I just couldn't believe it for a time until I did that deeper inner work. So I understand where people are coming from. And every human has two desires. One is just to get over this sense of that, I'm not good enough, because each of us deep down has a core of that belief that it's part of why we're here is to overcome it. But the second is to be significant in some way to some other person on the planet. So uh, storytelling and figuring those things out and doing that deep inner work allows us to move beyond that old story and to reframe our beliefs into something more empowering and more incredible. I had a coach once who walked me through my birth story. And then she said, "Now I want you to be the mother." Because I had three beautiful children I'd given birth to, and I loved being a mom. I still do. I love being a Mimi too. But I had loved giving birth to my children and loving them and nurturing them and, knowing there was no way I was going to let them go. She said, "Now I want you to give birth to yourself." And so here I am, the mom giving birth, and here I am, the baby being born. It changed something in the syntax of my brain forever. It helped to heal something absolutely significant and taught me neuro-linguistic programming and other things. Like, story is how we operate. It's how we've always learned from the time we were little. It's how our generations have learned from the dawn of time around the community fires, and we told stories. And it's how we learn roles, responsibilities, expectations, and it can be really good. But as in the case of your mother-in-law, it can be debilitating. And so I'm glad that you tell your listeners, do that deep inner work. You're all about the positive psychology, and there is something significantly wonderful to that. life-changing, transformational, actually. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Well, then thank you. It's so important because that was 86 years that she wasted a lot of her life because she was less than and she didn't believe in herself. And I don't want that for anybody. That's truly at the end of your life when you're it's like, dang, I wish I'd have figured this out sooner than this, kind of. Rochelle, we have to go, but any other thoughts before we go? Because Bridget has been just you are so special. You are so cool.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I think that you being the person this gift was given to is divine. I think you're the perfect person to be doing what you're doing, and you yourself are amazing. I can't wait to actually get to meet you. You're the first person. I'm like, go girl. So just thank you so much for being here. And please, 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 if you'll come back, I would love to continue this conversation in a whole new episode.
Fantastic. I would be honored. You two are remarkable and so much fun. Fantastic stories and also questions and everything else. One of my favorite podcasts ever. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And when you mentioned NLP and stuff, it's like, ah, crap, we got to do a whole different show now because there's so much more to learn about brain chemistry and how you do things and even muscle testing. People are so much fun because I get to say, you can figure this out and do muscle testing yourself, and that can lead you down a positive road. And it's like, I can't do it. And then I have them walk through it. And then they go, hey, this really does work. That's so weird. How come this works? But anyway, I digress.
And it's not voodoo. It's science and chemistry. It's the craziest, most wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Exactly. Bridget Cook-Burch has been our guest. Rochelle, her website, please.
Yes, go visit her website, which is yourinspiredstory.com. And think about writing a book, because I think I'm going to take this into myself and I'm going to write a book to keep up with for my life and for other people in my the other people in my family to share. So yes, thank you for being here, and I can't wait till you come back.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm so honored.
Well, and you guys are going to go out to dinner and all kinds of stuff because you're neighbors. That's kind of cool. So thank you, you two. And everybody, well, I'll say it at the end, but I'll say it again now. Be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at KMmedia.